Welcome back to the Draft Nut Podcast live on Blue Chip Scouting's YouTube and Twitter account. It's Jared Feinberg and Devin Jackson here to give you a little breakdown from this past weekend of NFL action and preview a little bit for Thursday Night Football and some of the key matchups this weekend. So, Devin, it's been a minute since I've seen you, like 4 hours ago.
Right, yeah.
Devin and I were recording a podcast for tomorrow, breaking down a little bit of some of the college football action. Talked about a little bit of the Big Ten, some of the interesting stuff going on in that conference, some of the recent struggles with Clemson and their offense, as well as Alabama's scare or close call with Florida. So, that's something you guys will be able to listen to tomorrow on iTunes and Spotify. So make sure you guys look out for that tomorrow. So, Devin, you ready to talk some Panthers Saints?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Whooped your ass, bro. Whooped your ass. Yeah.
Just a bad game all around. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they just, I mean, you could tell from the first series it was going to be a rough game for the Saints. Carolina moved the ball down the field with ease in the first drive, and I just had a feeling it's going to be a long day. And then offensively, I mean, Eric McCoy was out, so he had to do a little shifting. And, with Cesar Ruiz back at center, had Calvin Throckmorton at guard. And they just had no answer for Carolina's pass rush pretty much all day. So it was just rough, man.
Peyton Turner, though, dominated. He balled out.
That was really the only bright spot. That's the only bright spot from that game for the Saints at the very least.
Yeah. I was excited for Peyton Turner. I think he's going to definitely be a key piece of that defense down the road. Maybe by the end of the year, he's one of the legitimate good key pieces of this defense. I really do hope the Saints fanness or a biased fan side aside, I really do hope the Saints improve. They had a lot of bad luck with injuries, losing a lot of their coaching staff to COVID for this week. So the Saints were put in a tough spot for sure. But this was for the Panthers, this was an encouraging win, especially early on in the season. They're now 2-0 with a chance to go 3-0 Thursday night against Houston. And they could be going into Dallas, assuming they win Thursday night. They could be going into Dallas 3-0. And if they beat Dallas, who knows, I was chatting with Joe Marino of the Draft Network. Him and I we both live in North Carolina. He and I have met up at Panther training camps in the past. And he and I were talking about, or I asked him, is there a legitimate shot that Carolina could sneak in as a wild card team? Just going ahead and looking forward, assuming they beat Houston and they go on the road in 2 weeks against Dallas and take them down. Is there a good shot that Carolina makes the playoffs? He's like, it's early. And I agreed with him. It's early. It's too early to tell right now, but the signs are encouraging. Panthers defense is good. It's really good. They do have some injuries. I think I don't think Morgan Fox practiced, and Eudor Gross-Matos was in a red jersey during practice, so he was limited. So there could be some concern along the defensive line Thursday night, but we'll get into that game here shortly. But I was, of course, impressed with the defense. J.C. Horn played well, had his first interception of his career. Dante Jackson, man, if he continues to play like he's playing, he's going to deserve a second contract. That defensive line is incredible. Hassan Reddick is a really good, versatile piece. Just a really impressive performance by the Panthers defense, absolutely shutting down Jameis Winston and Alvin Kamara. I was expecting Kamara to have a much better game. I was expecting him to be a handful, and the Panthers just handled him easily. Like, I was shocked how well they played against Alvin Kamara. Offensively for Carolina, that offense was clicking, and I thought they did a better job in the second half, really trying to kind of ease up on the gas pedal a little bit, but their foot was still on the gas a good bit. And Darnold, he had that one weird, wild interception that he just tried to pitch it out to Chris Hubbard when like things were just collapsing in the pocket. Just a really Darnold Jets-esque throw or play by Darnold. It just was not good. But overall, for the day, he was really consistent, really solid, made good decisions with the football. He was accurate. His ball placement was consistent. I was really impressed with Darnold, and he's off to a good start in Carolina, though there's still a lot of football left, and this experiment with Sam Darnold could collapse midway through the season. You know, there's still a lot of football left. This is a 18-week season, 17 games. There's still plenty of football left. So I'm still I'll admit Darnold has been good. Not like incredibly good, but like good. He's been fine. But I want to see more moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, at least for the Saints, it was very difficult. And I heard a stat the other day before the game that Carolina has like the least amount of 3-and-outs since the start of, I want to say, last season. So they have like the least amount in the NFL, like even less than like Tampa Bay or Kansas City. So they can move the ball. Joe Brady is played he called a really good game on Sunday, and allowed Darnold to kind of get in rhythm early on. So they were able to kind of feature different people. And then obviously Christian McCaffrey started getting going more in the second quarter and second half on those choice routes. So it definitely made the Saints game plan a little bit more difficult because, the Carolina held on to the ball for, I think, like over half of the game. So every time New Orleans got the ball, they were playing catch up and trying to, get quick scores or trying to get the ball down the field. But the offensive line just couldn't hold up in protection. There were just too many times that there were free rushers coming at Jameis Winston, and pretty much the two turnovers he had, they were on free rushers. They came free, and he had to try and make something out of nothing. And like he did a good job, like against the Packers, of just taking what they gave you. But they were both times they threw interceptions. He was trying to push a little bit too much in terms of trying to get a score before half, and then obviously that last interception trying to get a score to try and keep the game closer than it was. So from the Saints' perspective, it was just a rough game overall. Receivers really weren't creating separation either. Even when Winston did have time to throw, he had to throw down to a lot of his checkdowns. He really didn't get to push the ball down the field, really. And the Saints offense really never got in rhythm. They couldn't get Alvin Kamara going and getting him. I mean, there were a couple of plays like Kamara made. They were just uncharacteristic. Like on a pitch play, it was like a third and 2. Usually he gets the first down, but he was short a yard. So got to give Carolina props for their game plan, their defense. I knew they were going to be good, and I picked this to be a low-scoring, close game, but the Saints really couldn't do anything to neutralize Carolina's pass rush. So got to give credit to Carolina for that. Like I said, they played some timely offense. It wasn't super explosive. It was very methodical, but that's how they play. So yeah, I mean, for the Saints, you just pretty much I don't want to say throw away the game tape, but look at it and just, kind of get over it. They're hopefully going to have their coaches back this week. Pretty much the injuries they have are pretty much set in stone outside like Marshawn Lattimore and CJ Gardner-Johnson, who both missed the game. So they just got to figure out how to correct some of their protection issues and move the ball more consistently on third downs.
And I want to be clear here. Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, by the time our teams are playing against each other in December, that's the next time they'll be playing again, will be completely different teams. No question about it. I don't think there's really going to be – I don't think both teams are going to stay the same throughout the season. I don't think that's really going to be possible. You're going to see a bunch of change, whether it's good or bad for either team. So you're going to be entering later in the season. Both teams could be vying for a wild card spot, in the NFC South. We all know Tampa Bay is probably going to win the division, but both teams would probably be vying for a wild card spot, maybe either as the 7th, the 6th, or the 5th seed. Just it will depend on how the NFC West goes. I think that's going to be very interesting to watch throughout the season because the NFC West is just incredible. I mean, the Cardinals look great. The Rams look good. The Seahawks look good, even though they lost in overtime. The Niners look good as well, but they're dealing with injuries again. At some point, the Niners are going to be starting Trey Lance at some point this season. It's inevitable, it feels like. But, I right now, I still don't think Carolina makes the playoffs, even though they started 2-0. Being realistic, because they have a very rough stretch in December. They play they play Dallas in October. They play Minnesota, who could end up rebounding, but it's not looking great at the moment. They had to play Arizona, I believe. Had to play New England. They play Buffalo. They still have yet to. They don't play Tampa Bay until the last 3 weeks of the season. So there's still a lot of football left. There's still a lot we don't know about either team, especially the Carolina Panthers. So I'm still kind of having reservations at the moment, but I think it's encouraging to see the Carolina Panthers look good, especially with Sam Darnold at quarterback, both offensively and defensively. I think the Saints definitely need some work. But I think once the rest of your coaching staff, Devin, once the rest of your team's coaching staff is back, I think they should be fine. Everyone gets healthy. Michael Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore, Chauncey Gardner, Eric McCoy. Winston just has to limit his mistakes, and that's something he'll have to work on this season. But I still think there's plenty of football left for both teams, and I'm excited to see how both of them look down the road, because the next matchup between our two teams could depend on who's making the playoffs from either as a wildcard team between the two of our teams, or the Saints will be already locking up a wildcard spot, and the Panthers will be back to being a really bad football team in case Darnold shits the bed. So that's kind of how I see it at the moment. I want to move on to Chiefs and Rams from Sunday nights, and I'll tell you what, that was a football game. I think a lot was riding on Lamar Jackson to really prove and show the world he can actually beat Patrick Mahomes. That's always been one of the nags. Like, he can't beat one of the great teams in the NFL, like the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. But those two teams, even with Baltimore having all the injuries, Lamar Jackson, Ofe Owe came up big, especially at the end of the game, and both of them were able to put the Ravens on top over the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. I think it was 36-35 was the final score. What do you think of this game for both teams moving forward? The Chiefs are definitely beatable. There is a recipe to how to beat them. Outscore them, attack their defense with consistency, whether that's in the ground game or with the passing game. If you have a good passing game, just tear them apart. If you have a good a good rushing attack, you run the ball like crazy. And that's what Baltimore did. They ran the ball really well. Lamar Jackson had over 100 yards. So the Chiefs look beatable, and the Ravens may actually not look so bad, even with all the injuries. Are we now seeing Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, despite all the injuries, take this next step and say, hey, the Ravens could really contend for a legitimate higher seed in the AFC, despite having the Browns in their own division?
I think it's kind of tough to tell, kind of early to tell. I mean, they show what they're capable of in terms of, they're able to run the ball, able to kind of control the game, especially in the second half. Play timely defense, but they're really going to need the emergence of some of their younger players that are playing in some of these positions. Like, Owe, he's going to have to continue to flash and make impact plays. Believe Anthony Averett as well out at corner. So they're going to continue to need some of these younger guys to step up, and then offensively continue to kind of build chemistry. In terms of the receiver position, they're going to get Rashad Bateman back in a few weeks as well. So they're in a good spot, I think, right now. It was obviously a must-win game against the Chiefs, and they were able to get it done and win the game. But going forward, I mean, it's going to be about for them continuing to have continuity, starting to get guys back healthy that are available and can play. Because the running game is going to be fine, but it's about continuing. When teams are starting to take that away, have that timely passing game, have reliable receivers outside of just Mark Andrews, and be able to push the ball down the field to Marquise Brown and some of those other weapons they have. So I think they're in a good spot. I wouldn't say necessarily they're going to necessarily compete for a top seed necessarily. I think it's still going to be an uphill climb because their division is one of, if not the toughest division in NFL, behind the NFC West and AFC West. So it's going to be interesting to kind of watch and see how well they can continue to play. But they just have to, continue to adapt with the injuries they have and play their brand of football. I think if they stay on schedule, especially offensively, I think they'll be fine.
I'm looking forward to seeing what this Ravens offense looks like when Rashad Bateman returns or when Rashad Bateman makes his debut, because I think Bateman could be a really key weapon on that offense. They have Marquise Brown, of course, but you really need that true wide receiver. They also have Sammy Watkins, but you really need that true X receiver on the boundary, and I think Rashad Bateman is that for them. So once he comes back healthy, ready to go, hopefully he starts balling out for Lamar Jackson and co. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Ravens do the rest of the way. But they have some good young talent on the defensive side of the ball, despite losing Marcus Peters. Anthony Averett has really stepped up into his role, taking over that Marcus Peters role on the boundary. He's looked really impressive. Devin, can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah, what's up?
Are the Las Vegas Raiders legit, or are they pretenders?
I think they're legit. I think this is a different team from the last couple of years. And they really have a chance to make a wild card spot, I think, in my opinion. It's going to be tough because, like I said, AFC West is one of the toughest divisions. But to me, it's really going to come down if they can win some of these divisional games. They beat Kansas City last year. when their defense wasn't even as good as it is now. And, the Chargers are going to be a tough draw, and so are the Broncos. So I think their defense is good enough to get them to the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to make a deep playoff run at all, just because I think there's some young guys on that defense, kind of still learning in their roles. Offensively, I think as long as the running backs stay healthy, I think they'll be fine. But I think they'll need a little bit more balance in terms of keeping defenses honest and continue to emerge some of those younger receivers like Ruggs, Brian Edwards, especially. If they continue to develop their players and what they're building, I think they could realistically be a playoff team. Like I said, it's early to tell right now, and we've seen hot starts by the Raiders kind of fizzle out in the past before too. But I think this year is a little bit different because one, Derek Carr is being a lot more aggressive with the ball downfield. That's something that we've been asking for in terms of his ability to push the ball down the field, because that was the only thing holding him back in this game. That he would be a little bit passive, taking the checkdowns and whatnot. But he's being a lot more aggressive and utilizing his weapons. And they're doing a good job play calling. The play calling has been fantastic. Personnel groupings to keep defenses off balance. I mean, they went up against one of the best defenses in Pittsburgh and scored 26 on them. So they're doing a really good job in terms of being able to, keep things balanced, having timely defense, getting a pass rush. Max Crosby obviously having a really good season to start off. And Jonathan Abrams at linebacker was an underrated move for them, because it allows some of their younger safeties like Trayvon Merrick and Tyree Gillespie kind of get reps in too. And it's just a more natural fit for them. So they made some really nice additions and moves. So we'll see if they can continue to keep it up. I think they're legit contenders.
I think Jonathan Abram at linebacker should have been the move all along. He's physical in the box. He can rock your world if you need him to. He is a physical run defender. And I think moving him to linebacker really helps out this defense. I'll go ahead and take my L on having the Raiders lose 10-plus games this upcoming season, because this does not look like a 10-plus loss team. This looks like a 9-10 win, possibly 11 win team. And I am so happy Derek Carr is now really just finally unlocking that. One thing that has really held him back was being more aggressive with the deep ball. He's doing that. He's doing this. He's playing fearless football, and I love it. I love it. It reminds me of when he was vying for MVP in 2016 when the Raiders were good then. So it's fun to see the Raiders looking like a good football team. And now, granted, there's still 15 games left. We still have a whole season left. But right now, the Raiders look good. But they could also be the odd team out. It's just, you look at that. You look at the AFC. You have so many teams vying for a playoff spot. In the AFC West alone, of course, you got Kansas City. That's a no-brainer. Got the Broncos, Chargers, and the Raiders. That's really, really those are three impressive teams in the AFC West. Raiders offensive line is a big question, and points that out, and I don't disagree. I think that the Raiders offensive line, they really just tore it apart, and I think it was more of the situation a lot of teams had because of the lowered salary cap from the COVID-19 pandemic. Was that they really couldn't hold on to some of that money, and the Raiders were broke, literally broke, and they needed to find a way to relieve some of that money or get some money back. So they have to cut some of their best offensive linemen. Now they still have Colton Miller, who's a dang good offensive tackle. But the rest of their offensive line is a little bit of a question mark. Can Alex Leatherwood turn into a legitimate right tackle? That's something we'll have to keep an eye on throughout the season. He's already had multiple penalties from what I've seen. He had quite a few penalties against the Ravens on Monday Night Football 2 weeks ago. So that he's got to improve. He's got to stay more disciplined. But I'm really impressed with what the Raiders look like so far, and I'm excited to see how well they do moving forward. One thing that really bothered me during this past weekend was all the injuries, man. Like every other minute, it felt like I was getting a notification from Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter or Tom Pelosi saying so-and-so is down, so-and-so is questionable to return, so-and-so is out for the rest of the game, so-and-so has an Achilles tear, so-and-so has a rib injury, Tua. Yeah, it was insane. I'm like, what is going on? What is with all the injuries? Like, I have not seen this. It was like sloppy and just bad. Like, Sunday was bad in terms of football play. It was sloppy. Like, all across the league, it was sloppy play. It was just really shocking.
Yeah, it's pretty much like that week one hangover. You know, you play that first game and, you know, then your body kind of gets readjusted to playing a full game because a lot of these guys didn't play in preseason or played very little in preseason. So you're readjusting to game tempo, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if you look at and I saw a tweet that, you know, kind of week 2 last year is kind of comparable too in terms of the amount of injuries, because these guys are, you know, it's kind of a weird process. I mean, you know, preseason was changed up, only 3 preseason games, so teams didn't know really how to approach it to kind of start off. And then, you know, you add in some of these guys didn't play, so their bodies trying to recover from week 1 to week 2. So, you know, hope a lot of these guys are able to come back, like Tua, Andy Dalton. You know, I know people want Justin Fields starting, but I'd rather him just win the job straight out instead of just injury. You hope Tyrod Taylor gets back too. He won't be able to play on Thursday with a hamstring injury.
He's on IR.
Yeah, so he's going to be out for a while. So there's a lot of quarterback injuries. I mean, Baker Mayfield went down at one point. Derek Carr went down. So there was a lot of injuries across the league. Carson Wentz obviously too sprained both of his ankles. So it's you know it's definitely you know, guys are definitely worried about injuries for sure. You know, with your favorite team. So it feels like every team pretty much at this point is dealing with some sort of injury to some key contributor. And if your team hasn't, I mean, it's purely luck right now. But we'll see how things continue to shake out in terms of the injury front. But it's just one of those things that's just part of the game. It's unfortunate. And I think, you know, kind of readjusting to a full training camp after not having one last year and all the different things they've had to do this off season and heading into the season have definitely affected some of the players for sure.
I'm still thinking about Carson Wentz having 2 sprained ankles. Like, how are you walking like that? I feel that I'm feeling the pain in both of my ankles too, bro. It's like, what?
Look, I understand people give him a lot of flack, but dude is tough, man. I will give him that. Like,
one of the toughest players in the league for sure.
Yeah,
one of the toughest quarterbacks overall.
I mean, you would like to, you would like to see him. I mean, obviously play better, but in terms of toughness, I mean, I don't think anyone can question that because he tries to play even when he's hurt. I mean, even in a game against the Rams, like when he got twisted up, he was still trying to go out there on the sideline, still trying to walk and move. But obviously, mobility is a big part of his game, and he didn't want to be compromised in that way. So it's tough, man. You hope Tua is able to come back soon too. Obviously, the bruised ribs that's a big injury, you know, because you're a lot of the passes you're throwing, you get your ribs exposed as a quarterback. So
Absolutely.
that's going to be something to monitor going
You're
forward.
making
And
it low, and like when you're in that like mid motion, like the whole rib cage is exposed essentially. So it's a very hard injury for quarterbacks for sure. And I remember in high school, starting quarterback for my high school team, he got drilled in the ribs. I mean, those suckers hurt. I've gotten hit in the ribs before. Like I've gotten tackled in the ribs. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. I got the breath knocked out of me. I stayed down for a few minutes. I was like, I need to catch my breath. Good God. It sucks, man. It really does. But breaking a rib or even a few ribs, it's just that is as painful as it gets. That's probably more painful than really anything lower body, honestly. It sucks. So moving on from week 2, we are now entering week 3, or not? Yeah, week 3. Thursday night football. My Carolina Panthers playing the Houston Texans on the road. When the schedule first came out, or when the teams were first announced of like who each team was playing this upcoming season, I think earlier in the year we were like, "Ooh, Deshaun Watson, could he be playing in Carolina and having a revenge game against Houston?" No. He's got other issues, and he is not even going to be. He won't be playing at all this season. And let's just go ahead and say we're going to not talk about his off-field issues because that's a very sensitive subject to talk about. So we are not going to discuss that at all because there's still not a lot of information out. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. But now it's going to be Sam Darnold versus Davis Mills, who a lot of people from Draft Twitter, like some people, Davis Mills had his fans from Draft Twitter. I was a fan of his tape in some ways or not, but his tape wasn't great, but there were a lot of good things I liked about him. So I'm glad to see Sam Mills getting an opportunity to start. I don't know how well he'll be. I don't think he'll do that great, but I really do hope the best for the kid. But Carolina is the outright favorite in this game. I think everyone is expecting Carolina to be 3-0 after this weekend or after Thursday night. But I think Houston can play. I think Houston can definitely play some good football. But what they will look like without Tyrod Taylor will be interesting because they were outscored 17-7 in the second half to the Cleveland Browns. Houston was leading in that game against the Browns this past weekend. When Tyrod left the game, the Browns outscored Houston 17-7. Browns won the game by 10. What will this Texans team look like on a short week with a rookie quarterback? It's going to be very telling how this team looks moving forward. I think this is one of the games where Sam Darnold is where both sides of the ball for the Panthers are just like they are on a roll. They look good. They look great. I will say there are a couple players I think Panther fans need to really keep an eye on when their team is going up against the Texans on Thursday night. Justin Reed, Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is probably one of the more consistent receivers in the league, and he doesn't get the attention he deserves. He is a damn good wide receiver. He is going to be a problem for that secondary. But as we've seen the last 2 weeks, that secondary has not been bad at all. They've been quite good. So how they'll respond to Brandon Cooks will be interesting. How the Panthers will scheme around Justin Reed will be interesting. I will be very interested to see what that game plan looks like for Joe Brady. I am expecting a Panthers win. I think most people will. I think some Houston fans would be like, yeah, Carolina is probably the better team in this matchup. Carolina is currently like a 7.5 point favorite last I checked. So they're a big favorite on the road, and I think this will be a Carolina W on Thursday night.
Yeah, I think Carolina should win the game. I think the Texans will, if they're able to run the football and able to get some movement up front, I think they can make the game interesting. And they're going to have to run the ball because you don't want to put Davis Mills in predictable third down situations and allow those pass rushers for Carolina to pin their ears back and come rush the passer. I mean, you want to. I think they're going to have incredible balance in terms of run pass and use play action and kind of rollouts and get him on the move him off the spot, because if they're just going to drop back and pass, it does not favor them to do so. But yeah, Brandon Cook's definitely someone to watch in this one, as well as Philip Lindsay. And kind of that backfield in general. I mean, they got Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay. Believe they have. Do they have David Johnson too as well?
Maybe.
I think they do, but they can kind of rotate those guys in, keep them fresh. But the path for the Texans to win, they have to control the clock. They have to kind of keep the Carolina on the field. Use variation. Obviously using the pass, build off the run, and force a few turnovers. I won't say this is a trap game, but I don't think this is going to be as easy of a game as fans think it's going to be. Because the Texans they're, to me, a lot of people thought they were going to be bad, like 2-3 win bad. I think they can win 4 or 5 games just based on how they play. They're a team full of veterans. They're not just going to be there to lose. There's a reason. These guys are NFL. They're not trying to lose and wait for rebuild. These guys are trying to win. So they're going to have a lot of pride. You won't ever see them really get overwhelmed too often. So they're going to be a tough team to beat. So Carolina definitely will have their hands full Thursday night on a short week. After a big win over the Saints. I mean, they're going to have to show up and play well.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. I think Panther fans really need to understand, like, this isn't the Houston team we were expecting preseason. We were, everyone thought the Texans were going to be the worst team in football. Hell no, they are definitely not one of the worst teams in football. But they're not the worst team in football. But they're definitely not one of the better teams in football. That's for sure. They're definitely below average type of team, but they are a team that will compete, that will fight, that will give you scares. And sometimes won't be able to close out games because of the lack of talent they have, but they do have a lot of veterans. They do have plenty of guys that will fight, that will compete. They have some good football players, such as like Philip Lindsay. They also have Laramie Tunsil. They have Brandon Cooks. They have Justin Reed. Like, they have like those cornerstone pieces that you have to game plan against. So those are going to be some key players for this game. This will not be a easy blowout win for Carolina. This is going to be a tough game. But it wouldn't surprise me with how well Carolina has played the last 2 weeks. Their defense just smothers Houston's offense, and Carolina goes wild on offense against Houston's defense, even with Justin Reed on that team. So it's going to be very I'm looking forward to the matchup. I'm looking forward to seeing how Carolina does on a short week, especially Sam Darnold, how he responds in a short week. But then after this weekend, whatever happens, week 4 for Sam Darnold, week 4 for Carolina, Dallas versus Carolina, I think will be one of the games of the week in week 4. That will be a very, very fun football game to watch, depending on how you view each team. So that will be something to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. A couple of the key matchups I wrote down in my notes for us to discuss real quickly, because I don't want to keep us here for another 20 minutes. I want to try and get this thing done quicker. Chargers Chiefs, that's going to be a good AFC West battle. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Rams in LA. That's going to be a really good game between two potential Super Bowl contenders in the NFC, and then Packers Niners, two other contenders in the NFC as well. I think Chargers Chiefs is going to be closer than some people think. I think the Chargers have a really nice team overall. I think they almost won against Dallas. They played a good game against Dallas. They also played a good game against Washington. They played two really well-rounded football games. And that throw that Justin Herbert made against Dallas, where he just hit it in the honey hole like 60 yards downfield on a rope. I'm like, holy boy, this dude has a cannon. So that is Herbert versus Mahomes is going to be fun to watch for years to come. Herbert is a top 10 quarterback in this league. He can possibly be top 5 once Brady or Rodgers ends up retiring. You know, this is a matchup that we'll be talking about. We'll be looking forward to every time these two quarterbacks play against each other. So I'm really excited about this game. I'm going to get destroyed for this. I think you know where I'm heading with this. I got the Chargers winning this one. I am a buffoon, man. I am down bad for sure doing this.
I mean, listen, the Chiefs are vulnerable. Their defense just isn't good. I mean, we saw it was pretty evident, you know, by how much the Ravens ran up and down the field on them. See, like, I don't know, man.
Fear of, like, we saw with Cleveland. Cleveland gets up a big lead, and then Kansas City scores 13 points in 3 minutes.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they can do against the Chargers. Chargers can probably do the same thing the Browns did, and yet still lose because the Chiefs can score an insane amount of points in such a short time, because they have, like, their defense can make clutch plays because they have Tyrann Mathieu, they have Chris Jones, they have Juwan Thornhill, they have a really fun rookie in Nick Bolton at the second level. They have dudes on defense that can make impact plays, that can just turn the game upside down, change the momentum. I can totally understand, like, having that fear of just knowing that's probably going to happen. But my gut is telling me that I think the Chargers have the game plan. They have the necessary tools, I think, to beat the Chiefs. Now, I don't think they're a complete team yet, but I do believe they have what it takes to beat the Chiefs this weekend. So this is going to be a really fun matchup. So I want to go ahead and let you finish your thoughts, and then we'll move on. Talk about real quick Bucs, Rams, and Packers, Niners.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game to really see who will win. I mean, the only thing is for me is that it's in Kansas City. You know, they play really well at home. They're coming off a loss, so it's going to be difficult for the Chargers. You know, I think they're going to put up a really good fight, but I think at the end, I think the Chiefs are going to make enough plays offensively and defensively to win the game. So I think it's going to be one of those classic, you know, divisional games where it probably goes down to the wire. But I think the Chiefs are going to find a way to win. And I can't remember the last time they had a losing record. So it'll be very surprising if they ended up losing Sunday and, you know, they come in with a 1-2 record. Probably will be one of the first times they've had a losing record in a couple years. So it'll be interesting to watch and see what happens.
I will say Super Bowl hangovers are real. It doesn't matter how talented you are. I'm just saying. Same thing. I will say from experience as a Panthers fan that was thinking the Panthers were going to be an elite football team in 2016. 6-10 happened, and it just was not great. So I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to go 6-10. No way in hell they're going to go 6-10. I'm just saying the hangover is real. They're probably not going to win as many games as we think. Like, we're expecting them to win 14, 13 games, but in reality, they could end up winning 11 games this season. It's totally possible. Like, the hangover's real. I still expect them to make the playoffs, but they may not be as high of a seed as we expect. So that's all I wanted to say right there. Moving on to Tampa Bay, LA Rams. This is a potential NFC championship matchup. This is a potential NFC championship preview. So Tom Brady, ageless, versus Matthew Stafford, who looks like he's having a great start to his new stint with the Rams. So I think this is going to be a really good game. I'm indifferent who wins this game because both teams are great. Both teams deserve to win. This is a great early season matchup. I tend to side with the team that has the more impactful players. And usually I would side with Tampa Bay on this one. So I'm not going to really say I'm picking Tampa Bay, but that's sort of where I'm leaning. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Rams won this game either. So it could go both ways, honestly. Both teams very talented. Both have stars on both sides of the ball that can make impact plays throughout the game. This could end up being a classic, early season classic between two really good football teams. So I'm excited for this game. That's a game I'm like, I need to be home watching this football game. I am not missing it. This is a game I want to watch. So I'm really excited to watch this football game this Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good game. I think the key matchups really in this game is, can the Rams offensive line contain the front four of Tampa Bay? And then can Tampa Bay cover all of the Rams' weapons? I think that's really what the game is going to come down to. Because I feel like every other thing is a wash at this point. Like, yeah, the Rams' front four is really good. Tampa Bay's offensive line is really good. Tampa Bay's receivers are really good. Rams' secondary is really good. So I think it's really going to come down to, the Rams' offensive line and Tampa's secondary. And, that it's going to play hand in hand. If Tampa Bay is able to get pressure consistently and force the Rams to be off schedule, I think they'll have the inside track to win the game. But if the Rams can handle what they're bringing them, and you're forced to blitz or forced to bring pressure, that's where their secondary can be a little vulnerable. So I think that's what it's going to come down to. I'm gonna give the Rams the edge in this one. I think they just have less questions about their team.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Because I'm just really worried about Tampa's secondary. I mean, they give a lot of points and yards to the Cowboys and the Falcons. Falcons probably not going to make the playoffs, so I can only imagine what's going to happen now with the Rams coming in. They have a really good play caller, a really good quarterback, so that's playing really well. So I think I will give the Rams the edge, but I wouldn't be surprised if either team wins.
Packers are coming off a big win over the Lions on Monday Night Football last night. I enjoyed watching the Mannings once more. Please make this a full season thing. Make this a every season thing because I love both of them. They need to be calling these games. I love the insight from both those guys. I just had to get out of the way real quick. Big win for the Packers. Big rebound for the Packers. Playing a Niners team that's dealing with injuries once again, but the Niners are still a good, legitimate football team that can still make the playoffs once they get healthy, if they can stay healthy. And especially if they decide to start Trey Lance down the road. So Packers, Niners, I'm going to go with Packers here because it's Aaron Rodgers and the Niners are dealing with injuries. I think that week 1 against the Saints was a wake-up call, like an early season wake-up call, like, oh shit, we gotta get our shit together. So they go out, they take care of business against Detroit, but they play a close game against the Niners. I think Packers Niners is going to be a very good football game. I still think the Niners are a playoff team, especially if they can stay healthy, and they could be an even better team if Trey Lance ends up starting down the road. And this is me saying the 49ers to start Trey Lance sooner than later, please, because that starting him opens your playbook. But anyways, yeah, give me the Packers just because, like, Aaron Rodgers, like, I get there's still some question marks with the Packers, both offensively and defensively. They're missing some guys, but this is a young football team. I don't think a lot of people realize that. This is a young football team. They're one of the younger teams in the league, which shocked me when I saw that statistic the other day. I think they're like one of the top three youngest teams in the league. So this team is still growing. This team is still learning, but they're a good football team. They're very talented. And I think they're going to get a big win this weekend against the Niners. I think this is Sunday Night Football, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of split on this game. I don't really know, what's going to happen with 49ers offense. Jimmy G has been inconsistent the first couple weeks. He just has not. Like, I get that, they're trying to, have a more balanced approach in terms of being able to run, build off of that, etc. But it just seems like, he's playing not to lose, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Trey Lance is obviously there. I don't think they're going to go to him early on in the season, but at some point I think they're going to have to make the change. And it just feels like Jimmy G is playing more. Like he did air it out a little bit against the Lions. I do want to give him credit for that. But really against the Eagles, it seemed like he was playing more of that, like, just don't make any big mistakes, played a little bit more safe. And I think for this 49ers team to realistically be a contender, they have to have him be confident in throwing the ball down the field. So this one's a toss-up, in my opinion. I think either team could win. I think the Packers win. I think they have to kind of get that in their mindset that they can beat this team, because this is a team they've lost to the last couple of years in the playoffs. So this is more of a psyche thing. And I think they have something to prove now, and Aaron Rodgers is going to try to put together one of his best games. I think, he has to show people that, like, week 1 was just, it just didn't go well, but we're still a good football team. So, and I'll be interested to see if the Packers make that change from Kevin King to Eric Stokes. But I think the Packers win the game.
Any more final thoughts before we head out?
Nah, just excited for this week 3 slate. I think this is the best slate thus far this season in terms of matchups and games, and could see a couple of these games later in the season in terms of playing each other, specifically the 49ers, Packers, and obviously the Bucks and Rams. These could be potential playoff matchups. So we'll see what happens and see how things shake out.
One quick thought before we head out. I think we've all seen that number 1 pick of the draft, generational talent, Trevor Lawrence, struggled in Jacksonville. I think this was, I wouldn't say this was unexpected, but it feels like for some people it was a bit of a surprise. But to me, like, I felt like, he gives this team a chance to win, but he is still learning the speed of the game. He's going to struggle. He may lead the league in interceptions. It's totally possible. He's turned the ball over, but I think it's good for him to be more aggressive and continue just to let him grow and let him realize where he makes the mistakes, and get better as the season goes along. It doesn't help that he has Urban Meyer as his head coach. I mean, it's not ideal, but it is what it is. I'm expecting Trevor Lawrence to improve anyway throughout the season. He's going to be a great quarterback. I have no questions about that. The team around him will get better over the next year or so. This is a rebuilding Jaguars team. I'm sure we've said this every year. This is a rebuilding team, but I think this is a true rebuild. Like they're now like we're rebuilding this thing. So I'm looking forward to Trevor Lawrence's improvement throughout the season. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the Blue Chip Scouting YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter. JRod NFL Draft, Jared Feinberg, at RealD_Jackson on Twitter. I got it right this time. Thank you. Make sure you follow the Draft Nut Podcast on Twitter at Draft Nut Podcast. And make sure you subscribe to the Draft Nut Podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Guys, thank you so much. Peace.